Once upon a time, on a serene Thursday morning, the tale began to unfold. My husband had just finished packing for a last-minute business trip, leaning in to kiss me goodbye as if it were just another ordinary day. Yet, there was an essence to that moment that lingered in my mind. He moved forward, never casting a glance behind him. The hush that lingered as the vehicle faded into the distance. That's when the realization washed over me. In that moment, solitude enveloped me entirely. The house seemed to chill, the air thick with an unspoken weight. For the first time in ages, I sensed that I had slipped from the forefront of anyone's thoughts. In my quest to break the stillness, I scrubbed the kitchen not once, but twice, reshaped the living room into a new vision, and even ventured into the realm of Bekingan endeavor he often claimed was beyond my grasp. Yet, despite my efforts, the silence remained unbroken. The solitude slinked in, gradual and relentless, until it became impossible to overlook. It was in that moment I chose to step outside, to wander and let my thoughts drift. Perhaps to embrace a new sensation. I found myself by the stables just outside of town. I had walked by them countless times, hardly noticing, but on that particular day, an unseen force drew me closer. It was there that I encountered Storm. A magnificent, powerful black horse, possessing the kindest eyes I had ever encountered. He stood apart from the rest, more serene. It was as if he could sense all the unspoken words lingering in the air between us. The stable owner inquired whether I would like to feed him. Perhaps even give him a gentle brush down. I agreed before the thought even crossed my mind. What unfolded next was beyond anything I had envisioned. It was neither wild nor crazy. Silence enveloped the scene. Authentic. There was a certain magic in the presence of Storm that transformed the silence into something more profound, filling the void with unspoken connection. Yet, what began as a simple visit unfolded into something far more profound. A hidden truth I never anticipated holding close, and if I'm being truthful, I still find myself pondering whether I may have crossed a boundary. Yet, what I can tell you is that day transformed everything. I found myself returning to the stables time and again. Initially, I convinced myself it was merely a way to fill the hours while my husband was gone. Something innocent. Yet, with every visit, the connection deepened, becoming more intimate than before. The manner in which Storm approached me, unwavering and confident. The warmth of his breath enveloped my hand. The manner in which he absorbed every word. It seemed as though he grasped the depths of understanding that few others ever might. That connection, it was more than just comforting. It was utterly captivating. I discovered that I was revealing secrets I had kept hidden from everyone. In the stillness of that quiet barn, I would share with him the tale of how my marriage had drifted into the shadows of distance. How I frequently sensed my presence as a mere whisper in the corners of my own home. There is no judgment, none offered. Only existence. It was peculiar, I realize. Some might suggest it was merely my emotions taking center stage. Yet, in moments of profound solitude, the slightest touch of connection can seem like a beacon of hope. The stable owner, Mr. Calhoun, possessed a gentle nature, yet maintained a certain distance that spoke of unspoken boundaries. He observed my frequent visits and one day remarked, "Storm doesn't warm up too many people, but he appears to have a trust in you." That struck deeper than I anticipated. Faith. It had been an eternity since I experienced the warmth of genuine trust, or extended that same trust to another soul. "Mr. Calhoun, allow me the honor of assisting with the feeding and tidying up." It filled me with a profound sense of purpose. I found myself no longer idly passing the time. With each visit, a new chapter began to unfold. There was a truth I was reluctant to acknowledge. A sense of unease settled in as I anticipated my husband's return. The quiet within our walls wrapped around me like a warm embrace, far more comforting than the chill that lingered in the space between us. It had been ages since we last exchanged words, perhaps even longer than that. And now with Storm, I found something that truly made me feel understood. It frightened me how effortlessly I fell into that realm, how deeply I longed to hold onto it. One afternoon, I found myself lingering in the barn, the shadows deepening long after the sun had dipped below the horizon. Time had slipped away from me. My phone buzzed, revealing 3 missed calls from my husband. I gazed at the screen, a weight pressing against my chest. I hesitated to make that call, not just yet, perhaps not at all. That night, I found myself lost in a dream where hooves thundered through the thick fog. A sensation of being swept away, untamed and unbound. As I opened my eyes, uncertainty washed over me. Was it merely a figment of my imagination, or a portent of something yet to come? Something had changed, and I couldn't shake the feeling. The following morning, I steered clear of my phone. I wished to silence my husband's voice, for the turmoil within me remained unresolved. I promised myself I would reach out to him later after I had untangled my thoughts. Yet deep within, I was aware that this was merely a facade, a change had taken place. And acting as if everything remained unchanged felt like a deception to us both. In the quiet of the stables, Storm stood by the fence, a familiar sight, as he always did. It seemed he could sense the turmoil within me. I approached him directly, resting my forehead against his, and released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Mr. Calhoun arrived not long after, expressing his need for assistance in bringing some supplies into town. It was the first moment he placed his trust in me beyond the confines of the barn. And without a second thought, I embraced the opportunity to say yes. Perhaps I was in search of a diversion. Or maybe I longed to experience a sense of purpose for a change. As we journeyed along, he cast a quick look my way and inquired softly, "Are you all right? You seem distant these days." I mustered a smile and gave a nod, yet I sensed he could see through my facade. He had a certain warmth that felt like a guiding presence. Not intrusive, merely attentive. It left me feeling even more vulnerable. As the evening unfolded, I stumbled upon something intriguing on my husband's social media. A snapshot captures him in the company of colleagues, laughter echoing around as he raises a drink in celebration. It ought to have filled me with joy to witness his tranquility, yet what washed over me was an unusual void akin to a twinge of envy, not of the people surrounding him but of the effortless grace he exuded, the solace he appeared to discover far from the familiar embrace of home. And then arrived the message, only a handful of words. "Shall we have a conversation? Something feels amiss." I gazed upon it for what felt like an eternity. Did he feel it as well? Was it the widening chasm between us, or was there something else at play altogether? That night, slumber eluded me. In my mind, I found myself revisiting the moment at the stables, where Storm and I connected in a profound, silent way. A bond that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. I wasn't mad, a genuine event was unfolding. Not romantic, not physical, but profoundly emotional. Perhaps that was an even greater peril. As the days unfolded, I discovered a preference for the barn over my own home, for silence instead of uncomfortable exchanges, and for the steadfast loyalty of a horse over the presence of a man I had come to no longer recognize. A presence was approaching. I could sense it. Uncertainty loomed over me, and I found myself wondering which chapter of my life would unravel first. The ensuing days unfolded like a fleeting dream. My husband reached out through texts and calls, yet I found myself unable to respond. Each time his name appeared on the screen, a weight settled in my chest. That conversation caught me off guard, not when I scarcely grasped the emotions swirling within me. I promised myself I would reach out again the next day, yet that day never arrived. Instead, I devoted nearly every waking hour to the stables. I even began assisting with the early feedings and the late-night check stopmer. Calhoun simply observed, allowing me the space to exist without inquiry. Perhaps he grasped it in a manner unique to him. Storm had transformed into something far beyond just a horse for me. He was a refuge, a reflection of all that remained unspoken within me. At times, merely being beside him in the stillness of the barn seemed more genuine than any dialogue I had shared with my husband in recent months. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a tempest surged forth, fierce and unrelenting. The wind wailed through the branches and the rain poured down like a relentless curtain. Calhoun reached out to me in a flurry of concern, sharing that a tree had come crashing down by the back fence, leaving Storm quite rattled. With a surge of adrenaline, I dashed out, my heart racing as I slipped on my boots and snatched my keys. The journey through the rain unfolded like a dream, headlights cutting through the shroud of night, illuminating the path ahead. Upon my arrival, Storm was moving back and forth, filled with an anxious energy, his gaze intense and untamed. With a steady heart, I stepped into the pen, softly calling his name, seeking to soothe his restless spirit. Though the wind howled and the chill bit at my skin, my voice trembled not from fear, but from the thrill of the moment. He halted abruptly, our gazes intertwining, and for a fleeting moment, time itself seemed to pause. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness behind me as a car approached, drawing nearer. The moment I felt that presence, I knew without a doubt who it was behind me. My husband returned sooner than expected. I stood still, caught in the moment. The wind howled fiercely as thunder growled ominously overhead. The car door slammed shut and the sound of footsteps squelched through the thick mud. He drew nearer. I remained still. I was unable to dot. My hands lingered on Storm's neck. My body drenched, my heart caught in a dance between fear and relief, and an indescribable feeling lingering in the shadows. In that instant, I felt the weight of transformation in the air. I found myself uncertain about the depth of it all, and who might take that first step away. I hesitated to turn round immediately. I stood there, drenched to the bone, my hands quivering against Storm's warm coat. My husband's footsteps came to a halt just a few feet behind me. Yet the silence that hung between us roared louder than the thunder crashing above. The intensity of his gaze pressed down on me, thick with confusion, perhaps even tinged with anger. "What in the world is happening?" he finally uttered, his voice low and strained. I turned slowly, my eyes blinking against the relentless rain. His face was caught in the glow of the headlights, eyes narrowed, lips set in a firm line. His expression was a mixture of shock and pain upon seeing me, and for a fleeting moment, I found myself caught in a web of uncertainty, torn between the fear of his assumptions and the chilling possibility that he was inching closer to the reality of the situation. I was assisting and soothing him, my voice barely a whisper. He trembled before the towering tree. Indeed, I caught that moment as he interjected, casting a look at the shattered fence and the branches strewn across the field. Then, his eyes returned to me, filled with unspoken tales. "But what brings you here, night after night? You don't even pick up when I call." I found myself without a response that would satisfy him, for the truth was a complex tapestry, woven with threads of nuance and depth. It was never solely about the horse, the barn, or Mr. Calhoun. It was a tale woven from the silence that lingered between us for far too long. The quiet that lingered between us and our shared dwelling. The transformation into strangers living side by side beneath the same ceiling. Then arrived the second strike. "You're not the only one with secrets," he said, stepping closer. Rain cascading from his hair, I had a purpose beyond mere work. My breath hitched. For a fleeting moment, time itself appeared to stand still. "There exists another," he continued. "It's not a matter of life and death, or perhaps it is, I'm not quite sure. But I can't share that with you, not given how things have unfolded between us." The barn light danced erratically behind him, weaving peculiar shadows that played across his features. My fingers fell away from Storm's neck as the truth anchored itself in my chest. Heavy and unyielding like a stone, one would expect to feel betrayal, rage, or perhaps something piercing, yet all I sensed was a profound stillness, as if it had been a truth I had always carried within me. He cast his gaze downward, a shadow of shame crossing his features. I returned to share my thoughts. Perhaps to mend what was broken, or maybe to bring closure in a fitting manner. I found myself standing there, the rain pouring through every layer of my being, and in that moment, the walls I had so carefully constructed began to fracture. Not due to his words, but because I held back my tears. I remained steadfast, for within my heart, I had already set him free. Just as I was about to speak, Mr. Calhoun burst through the barn door, his voice ringing out with urgency about the back gate swinging wide, and the horses growing increasingly restless. The storm stirred, picking up on the palpable tension in the air. My husband flinched, and in that moment, the realization washed over me. The moment had transcended the bounds of our marriage. A greater event was unfolding, something that demanded immediate attention. A choice lingered in the atmosphere, unexpected and profound. As we found ourselves standing right at its heart, the storm calmed as I took a step back, softly leading him toward his stall. My husband stood in the doorway, soaked in quiet, observing me with a gaze he hadn't worn in ages. Not with anger, but with a sense of deeper comprehension. Mr. Calhoun hurried by, making his way to the open gate at the back, leaving us momentarily in solitude once more. The tempest beyond had settled, yet the one that raged between us had already subsided. I faced him and, at last, spoke the words that had long been waiting to escape. "For some time now, we've wandered in a haze, cloaked in pretense, holding our breath for a shift. Yet the tides remained unmoved." He nodded, his movement slow and weary, as if each gesture carried the weight of untold tales. "It seems we lingered a bit too long, both of us, perhaps longer than was wise." There was a quiet understanding, an unspoken farewell, simply the essence of reality. And that was sufficient. At times, the most profound conclusions are wrapped in silence. In quietude, we made our way to the truck, and I passed him the car keys with a sense of unspoken understanding. "Return to your dwelling. I shall remain behind to assist Calhoun with the cleanup." He chose silence. He cast one final glance my way, as if there were unspoken words lingering in the air, then climbed into his car and drove away. After everything, it wasn't pain I felt. It was tranquility, unusual, gentle tranquility. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn back to the barn, not as a means of escape, but out of a genuine desire to be there. I engaged in deeper conversations with Mr. Calhoun, lent a hand in caring for the horses, and gradually pieced myself back together. Storm stood by my side, unwavering and steadfast, just as he always had. Inquisitive minds began to stir as neighbors, friends, and even family sought answers. "What is it about the horses? Why is this the moment?" And my response remained unchanged. For it is in those moments, when the world crumbles around you, That you discover solace in the stillness, surrounded by those who seek nothing but your truth. From that moment on, my perception of Storm transformed entirely. He was no longer merely a horse, but a symbol of my true self, the person I discovered when I shed the facade I had been wearing. My husband and I may not have come back together, but we discovered a sense of resolution. That was sufficient. And now, when the world grows noisy, I retreat to the stables. For it was in that moment that I rediscovered the art of listening. In a place where I discovered that love often wears an unexpected face. It has a way of finding you when you're not looking for it at all, amidst the rain. In the hush of silence. With a horse by my side.